Okay, recap for NAL Playday number 2 of the second stage of the 2022 season. So in the following recaps, I'm thinking about maybe just trying to amass like clips from the playdays, and I mean maybe like longer clips so I don't have to get so many. But let me know if you guys would maybe prefer to just have clips in the background as opposed to seeing what I'm talking about, seeing the stats and whatever. Yeah, let me know. And maybe also at that point I'll try to make them more brief, but I mean I try to do that sometimes and it doesn't work out. Other than that, you know, maybe I'll do the call to action at the beginning. Like and a subscription if you enjoy this kind of thing is definitely appreciated, and then, well, comment, you know, if you have anything to say. So first game of the day, we have Sonics versus TSM, and this one was, I think, one of the better looking games coming into the day. Two really good teams in the past, the two best performing NA teams at the most recent SI, but also probably the two teams that fell the shortest relative to their expectations in the most previous stage, in stage number 1 that just happened. So both of them missed out on the major. Not only that, they weren't even close to making the major. And going into this one and going into today, I had certain expectations, and I think a lot of people did have similar expectations, and they were dashed a little bit. My predictions didn't do too well, and they haven't been in the first 2 days. It is what it is. I think a lot of that, I think I'm like 50% on predictions, which is just like dreadful. I do think a lot of it, to be fair, is the fact that we've seen like half of the games be played online. I think that's affected things to some degree. Anyways, okay, maybe we'll talk about that more in the predictions video, right? Yeah, TSM took the game 7-5. I did predict Sonics, and it ended up being a fairly close game. So Sonics lost in round 15 in the previous day, and now they lost in round 12 here. So a couple of losses. They did get 1 point out of them, but still close games. And then TSM, on the other hand, taking the victory here. Full 3 points here, full 3 points yesterday. Puts them at the top of the board along with XSET. I guess technically XSET is above them by round differential, but still TSM got the full 6 points. They only got 7 points last stage, so off to a really good start. They play on Clubhouse, which seemed like a little bit curious of a choice. It seemed like a relatively neutral map, but definitely Sonics favored, if anything. Sonics, I think, didn't play it last stage. Neither did TSM, but Sonics never banned it. It was always banned against them because it is a map that they quite like. TSM banned it, I think, 6 of the 9 games. So seemed like one TSM was trying to avoid, but also 3 teams banned it against them. And, you know, Clubhouse, it's not the craziest map. It's one of the most standard maps. There's not much you can do in the way of surprising your opponent. Maybe if you have a really crazy bar strat, maybe even a little bit of weird of a bedroom strat, but most of the objectives besides bar don't lend themselves to any sort of surprises. It just comes down to solid gameplay, executing your game plan better than your opponents can, and these days it really does come down to doing that on attack. It's pretty tough to defend Clubhouse because it is pretty much all figured out, and yeah, TSM just got it done. Sonics, they had a pretty good first half, just like they did in the previous day, and let me actually check how it went down exactly. So TSM do take the first round, but then Sonics get 3 in a row, looking pretty good. TSM won, Sonics won, so 4-2 half. That's the same half as they got on Bank, but they were on the defensive Bank, and so in the past, Bank pretty attacker-sided. I think it still is in that match, which is just a little bit of a fluke, and in the past, Clubhouse pretty defender-sided, but definitely becoming more attacker-sided, and that is what we see here. So 4-2 half, it seems like it should be enough to at least push overtime, but TSM is super dominant once they get onto attack, getting 4 in a row. They're already up on a match point. Sonics gets 1, but then they cannot get the other. So, right, yeah, losing in regulation on what is one of their best maps, maybe not their best map, but certainly one of their best maps is a little bit brutal. So a rough start for the Sonics and an excellent start for TSM. 70% of voters for TSM. This is, I think, largely to do with just TSM and Bolo being really popular. I think this was a lot closer to 50-50, with maybe even Sonics being favored a little bit based on certain factors that I've spoke to in the past. But, you know, I guess in the first day, TSM did get a win, whereas Sonics lost, but Sonics was playing Astralis and TSM was playing Mirage, so it was definitely hard to call. Then looking at the stats, yeah, Rexen and Grixer do okay. Kansan and Super a little bit worse. Yeti, just a dreadful game. He was my player to watch this stage, and I mean, yeah, Sonics hasn't done too well, and well, neither has Yeti. On TSM side, Geo really popping off here. They're a hard support player, and I guess Chala was the one playing the Thermite. Geo on the ace, but still playing a hard breach operator. Yeah, he really popped off, especially later into the game, and then Bolo and Merc doing fairly well, keeping their heads above water in terms of the rating, and then Chala and achieved a little bit lower, but it is what it is. They got the dub, they got the full 3 points. I'm sure they're perfectly happy with the result. Super mentioned on his stream that if Sonics don't make this major, they will be making roster changes, and that is known by the team. He told that to the team, so I like maybe that involves him going off the roster, but it didn't sound like it. And honestly, it does look like Yeti is probably the one on the chopping block, even despite the first 2 games performances, I think, of all the players on the team. So that is a little bit of a fire lit under them to make improvements as a team, as individual players, whatever. And Sonics are not off to a good start. So making the major, they have to get top 4. It's really competitive. And we'll see where they go from here. It's definitely not impossible, but they did get off to a rougher start than most other teams. So we'll go on to the next game. Second game of the day, XSET versus Mirage. Absolute beatdown by XSET, as was completely expected. So this game was played online, and I believe also the next 2 games were. So that first game and then the final game of the day we'll talk about were played on LAN like normal, but the other 3 played online. Really unfortunate that we've had so many games played online. I think some people were talking about maybe that they should have been postponed, not only because they're played online, but also some of the players are quite sick, and so that's really impeding their performance. In this game in particular, Melted didn't even play because his COVID symptoms are so severe, so their coach Guerra is stepping in for him for this game. I'm assuming it'll be back to normal. Hopefully everybody's feeling better and whatnot by Tuesday, and I mean that's a good amount of time, so hopefully that will be the case. But for this game, yeah, Guerra stepped in, and so it's Mirage. They're playing with a coach. They're playing online, and I don't know if the online thing really mattered, but the other 2 factors obviously put it heavily in XSET's favor, even disregarding the quality of the teams coming in. And yeah, XSET, this could have been a 7-0. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was a 7-0, but it was a 7-1. Mirage at least got the 1 round, so this is the biggest beatdown of the stage thus far. We'll see if we see any 7-0s. We go to Villa. I don't think there's a lot to say about it. I don't think it too much mattered which map we went to. The result was going to be pretty similar. No matter what, XSET just needed to go somewhere they were relatively familiar with, and I think Mirage just wanted to go somewhere they were kind of comfortable with. Not that Mirage has too many wins on any map, but, they played Villa, so maybe somehow they could squeak out a win, but not the case. And then community prediction, of course, yeah, this is one of the most lopsided, again, because of the teams playing, and then also because of the circumstances, and then the stats. Yeah, Gomez really padding his stats here. He was like, I don't know, 5 and 10 or something the previous day, so he made up for it here. I guess he's also the IGL, so really popping off 100% cost, really high KPR. Diaz and Yaga putting up sort of similar stats, and then Spears and Kino not as good, but I mean, whatever, it's a 7-1. Benji, the only one putting up decent numbers whatsoever. Benji's done quite well in the first 2 games, and we'll see if he can continue his performance once he's not playing online. I think there are a lot of accusations of him just being an online player, but if he can keep up a similar performance offline, good for him, I suppose. And they're going to need some of their players to really do well once they get back to offline if they want to get out of that last place position. Surprisingly, Guerra, the highest rated player outside of Benji, despite being the coach stepping in, and then, Kento, Nix, and especially Marmalade doing really, really poorly. And I guess, not too much to talk about for this game, really. So we'll go on to the next one. Game number 3, Astralis versus Parabellum. I do think this one was a little bit surprising. I think Astralis were pretty well the heavy favorites, but I don't think as heavy as a lot of people thought. I think a lot of people were underrating Parabellum. Maybe they're not anymore after this victory, but I do think that they were before, and maybe myself included. Maybe I didn't take into consideration enough the fact that DP Fire probably still is a little bit sick. He was, I think, really sick the day before, so I'm assuming 1 day later he's not totally fully better. They played online, and so it was call out before, and they got the win against Sonics in round 15, but now DP Fire back in, playing online, but again, he's still probably kind of sick. And so maybe that was a factor, but maybe not. Maybe the online really was a thing. It's hard to call. There are a lot of circumstances in a lot of these games that it's hard to figure out exactly how impactful they were. But I do think Parabellum just is looking quite good. We go to Villa and they win 7-4. This is the exact same thing that happened against Dark Zero last stage. Parabellum beat them 7-4 on Villa. So I think Parabellum, it's just a pretty good map for them. I think a little bit curious of a choice by Astralis. I don't think Astralis even has a bad map. They have like 1 or 2 maps that they ban quite a lot, but the other maps are all pretty good for them. Of course, they didn't lose too many maps last stage and even at the major. So Villa probably felt like a fine enough choice, but also it seems like one of Parabellum's best maps. So maybe you could have gone somewhere else, especially the Oregon here. I think Parabellum also cooks up some stuff on Oregon, but I don't know. I feel like maybe Oregon would have been the better choice out of these final 2 maps that Astralis had the choice between. But it is what it is. Maybe it would have been the same result on Oregon. Very heavily favored in community prediction, very heavily in favor of Astralis. A little hard to tell with the colors, but indeed the one on the left is Astralis. And so, yeah, I think a pretty big upset in the eyes of the community. And I think even in in just like objective terms, but again, maybe not quite as big as people thought. Blaz really popping off. I think he had a pretty bad start to the game, going like 0-3 or something like that, and then he really made a comeback. And then Kool-Aid and Eska doing pretty well, and then Penguin and Gunner not doing as well, but 7-9 is fine. And these were actually the two players that popped off in the previous game against Oxygen that went all 15 rounds. So good to see over the course of just 2 days, all 5 players having put up pretty good performances. So, and especially Blaz and Gunner, the newer players on the team. Blaz topping this game, Gunner topping the previous game. And then over on Astralis, DP Fire, he did kind of struggle here. He did get target banned. The Ace ban came out from Parabellum, and that's an op that DP Fire plays a lot and does quite well on. But also he's sick, so I don't know. Maybe he'll have a better performance next week. Maybe he won't get target banned next week. But I have to imagine the target ban and also him not feeling 100% had something to do with it. And see him at the bottom here. Iconic not doing too well, generally one of their better performing players, and this probably was a pretty big detriment as well. J90 in the middle, Forrest on the same rating, same KD, and yeah, that's it for that match. I don't think there's anything else to talk about there, so we'll go on to the next one. Game number 4, Dark Zero versus Space Station. This was definitely the biggest shock of the day. I think it was realistic for Space Station to win the game, but nobody thought they were going to beat them this hard. There were a few, I don't know, things out of the control of Dark Zero. 1 or 2 of the rounds, I think Canadian had this glitch where he just like couldn't play the round. He got on a Flores drone and he was just glitched to where he couldn't do anything. So that probably impacted it, but the way the game was going, the way Space Station and Dark Zero were each playing, it did seem like it probably would have still gone pretty heavily Space Station way. Maybe Dark Zero gets another round or 2, maybe that would have shifted the momentum, but realistically, I still think Space Station would have taken it pretty similarly. Yeah, we go to Border, and it seems like a little bit weird of a choice for Dark Zero. So Space Station played it last stage, so did Dark Zero. Dark Zero beat Sonics, I think it was 7-4. Space Station lost to Astralis 7-5. So, maybe it's hard to really quantify those things. Dark Zero beat a team that was really struggling last stage, and Space Station lost to the best team, and they were similar scorelines. Dark Zero also went on to play it at the Major, and they didn't lose it at the Major. They played it against Heroic, I believe, in groups, and they won, and then they played it against Astralis in the grand final and also won it. And so they beat the team, they beat Astralis, who beat Space Station on the same map, so maybe that made them a little bit more confident. But I don't know, Border just strikes me as a map that you didn't want to take Space Station to in this particular circumstance. Dark Zero looked very good in the first day, demolishing Beast Coast, and that is Beast Coast. They still need to prove themselves this stage, I think, and Space Station lost to a pretty good team in XSET, but a team that I think people thought that they definitely had the capability to beat. But, I also have to talk about it in this match, the COVID factor. Lycan, I think, is still out with COVID. I don't know if he was, talking to the team at all during timeouts or what the deal is there. I don't think he was in the room. Bosco also not in the room. But that didn't seem to impede them here. This game was played online. Maybe that helps them, maybe that doesn't. It seemed to hurt them in the previous game, but maybe XSET is just the best team in the league right now. It looks like it at the moment, but pretty small sample size. So, yeah, a lot of factors to consider, but I don't know. I just wonder if maybe a different map for Dark Zero would have worked out better. Clubhouse, you don't really want to take Space Station to. Cafe, I guess not. Skyscraper, I don't know. Maybe Theme Park would have been more favorable. Maybe, probably Space Station would have still banned out Bank if Border got banned here. I don't think they wanted to play Dark Zero on Bank. They've been excellent on Bank, even if Space Station's been pretty good. They did take the loss to Beast Coast, so I think maybe shakier than much shakier than Dark Zero, obviously. Bank is the map where Dark Zero just won the Major. So Border, a little bit weird, but maybe it just came down to Space Station being excellently prepped. And then, 70% of voters in favor of Dark Zero. I'm surprised it's not even more. I think Space Station is pretty popular, but based on the results of the first day, I think a lot of people thought Space Station was going to come out of the gate super hot, and they didn't. And Dark Zero did. So, I guess in terms of actual expectations, I think this was realistic. I'm surprised the community wasn't a little bit more swayed, though. Looking at the stats, Rampy really popped off. He had a really big 1vx round, really big, really massive, and kept the momentum in their favor. Sky's doing well, and good to see he had a really bad game yesterday, and then honestly everyone doing pretty well. Fultz, not impressive, but still above a 1 rating, positive on KD, positive on entry, perfectly fine. And then over here, NJR was doing really well at the beginning of the game, then he fell off a little bit, ended up being even on kills, about even on rating, and then everyone else, pretty brutal game. Pamva, and then Hyper, and then Canadian and Eclipse, especially bad. Generally, these are the 2 lowest rated players, but obviously this is quite bad, and well, these are stats that you would expect from a 7-2. It is what it is there. And I think Houghton said on Twitter that over the course of the last week, everyone on SSG other than Fultz and Luke had COVID. So I don't know how many of them actually had it at the time. I think it was just Bosco and Lycan, but that means also Houghton and Skies had it recently. So maybe they were still a little bit under the weather, but not totally clear. I mean, I guess a little bit of a flu game for them here, and I think they're really, really happy to get a win against quite a good team after having lost to, I guess, also quite a good team in XSET on the previous day. So that does it for this game. We have, I guess, one more to talk about. Oxygen versus Beast Coast, final game of the day. This one also played on LAN, played under normal circumstances, just like the first game of the day. And this one went kind of similar to yesterday. Beast Coast played on Theme Park, Oxygen also played on Theme Park, and now here they are playing each other on Theme Park. Beast Coast got smacked on it by Dark Zero. They lost 2-7. Oxygen won it 8-7 against Parabellum. Oxygen in this match, they go around 0-4, and then they come back to win 7-5. So after they go 0-4, they go 7-1. Extremely impressive comeback. But it is Theme Park, perhaps the most defender-sided map. I guess, maybe we'll see by the end of the stage, maybe Skyscraper or whatever. But definitely one of the more defender-sided maps at the moment. So it does make sense for them to get off to these pretty bad starts. Throne is just this near impregnable objective. Really hard to win on attack. So I think they get the 2-4 half, I want to say. Don't they get these they get these 2 rounds, and that's probably enough, and obviously it was enough. If they'd lost one more round, they would have gone overtime instead, but no, they do get the full 3 points. Really brutal for Beast Coast getting off to that really massive start, and then they didn't even get the 1 point on the board. Again, just one more round. 1 point would have been, we'll see, maybe by the end of the stage that 1 point will be significant, maybe it won't, but good to see Oxygen proving their mettle, proving that they can make the comeback. And maybe not the most impressive teams, Parabellum and Beast Coast, but Parabellum is looking more and more impressive, and Beast Coast, it looks like maybe they're heating up. 2 rounds in the first game, 5 rounds in this game. maybe they will get a win in the next one. I do think they have a pretty tough week next week, just like they did this week. Yeah, I mean, in terms of what other maps we could have gone to, it's probably okay. I don't know. Going to the map that you just got crushed on is a little bit weird from Beast Coast, but Oxygen was definitely shaky on it, and maybe Beast Coast saw some things they really wanted to take advantage of, whereas there's obviously a lot fewer rounds played in the Beast Coast game, so maybe fewer things for Oxygen to glean an advantage from. And then we'll just take a look at the stats. Yeah, community prediction very massively in favor. It looked like it was going to be a big upset, but luckily for my predictions, this ended up going the other way. Brought me back up to 50%. Surf doing pretty well here, and Sweater as well. Surf, the top-rated player for Beast Coast in both of their games. Sweater had a really bad game in the previous play day, and so it's good to see him doing well here. And then Anthony kind of struggling. It took him a while to get on the board, not only in this day, but in this stage. These are his first 5 kills. He didn't get any in the previous day. Slash and Drip really, really struggling here. Definitely going to need to see an improvement from these 3 players. And then Surf, I guess, just continues to be consistent. Sweater, I guess, inconsistent, going from really bad to pretty good. So I think it just, as a team, they have to work out a few more things. We'll see how they do going forward. And then Laxing, who generally hasn't been very good on Theme Park, really pops off here, highest rated player. And then Newer's not far behind. He's been really good this stage. He was really good in the first half or so of the previous stage, and then kind of really bad in the second half, and then really good at the major, and now he's been really good. So maybe he just needed a little bit of time to flip-flop, and now he's back on the flip or whatever. But yeah, quite good thus far. We'll see if he can keep it up. Foxay, I think, also quite good between yesterday and today, and the Dream whatever, and the Vertical really struggling. I think their lowest rated player in both games, so maybe his streak of really, really good stages is over, but he does still have some time to bounce back. I guess that does it for the games, and we're 2 days in. Let's take a look at the standings, I suppose. Okay, it's only been 2 days. There's a ton of stuff that could still happen, and of course not that much stuff that has happened, but I'll read them down the line. From 1st through 10th, we have XSET, TSM, Oxygen, Parabellum, Space Station, Dark Zero, Astralis, Sonics, Beast Coast, and Mirage. Mirage and Beast Coast, I think in their expected positions, they looked like the 2 worst teams coming into the stage, and they have been thus far. They do have a lot of time to bounce back, but it's looking like quite the uphill battle for them. Sonic continued to be not very good, just like they were last stage. They did get the 1 point against Astralis, which is nice, but that was against Astralis's coach, their weakened team. There are a lot of factors there, but we'll see. We'll see how they do through the rest of the stage. They do have that added pressure that I mentioned earlier. Astralis definitely not doing as well as last stage. They've already missed out on 4 points, and last stage I think they only missed out on 5 points total, so they're going to have to go just about flawless if they want to replicate their performance from last stage. Probably they won't. We'll see if they can make it back into the top 4. Dark Zero also not in the top 4 when they were last stage, But, I mean, once again, I'll just keep saying it. There is plenty of time for them to get back there. They are tied with Space Station on points, but Space Station is above them by round differential, also by head-to-head. And Space Station just outside of the top 4 like they were last stage, and they're very close to breaking in. Parabellum 1 point ahead of them, but on the same round differential. Parabellum lost 2 points, I suppose, to Oxygen, and had that game gone 1 round different, if Parabellum had won that 15th round, it would be Parabellum above Oxygen. And so we see TSM and Parabellum up here. They weren't up here last stage. Parabellum ended in 7th place, TSM in, 9th place, so they're off to a much better start than last stage, or at least they're in better positions currently than they ended in last stage. And yeah, Oxygen just missing out on 1 point. They had a couple of close calls, but they're in prime position to maintain a high place on this leaderboard. And then TSM and XSET, they've gone flawless thus far in terms of points. XSET, I'd say much more impressive. They both played against Mirage, and XSET did much better against Mirage. Mirage seemed weaker in the game against XSET because of the circumstances, and so XSET lost 3 fewer rounds. Other than that, XSET played against Space Station, and TSM played against Sonics, and so Space Station currently higher than Sonics. They did better than them last stage, so it seems much more impressive by XSET. But again, both have 6 points, and they both played like similar-ish teams, so it's whatever. We'll this could be a banger matchup whenever this comes along. When is it? So TSM versus XSET, June 28th. So that's not these next. It's not this next week, but I think it's the week after that. So around in the middle of the stage. So this could be to determine who will be the top team going forward if they both have good weeks in this next coming week. So I guess that does it for the standings and for the video. And I did all of the normal stuff I do at the end at the beginning. So I'll just call it quits here. I will catch you guys in the next video.